Good morning everyone, today we're going to be answering the question whether a Verschmel Fixa Termina 5 is better than a Flugelguard or not. Because in many cases it is, and in some cases it's not. So I'm going to explain exactly what I mean in today's video. But before we jump into all of that, if you're new to the channel, I upload NGS content daily, so if you do play this game, I would really appreciate a subscribe as it really helps out the channel. Anyway, without further ado, let's begin the video. So the very first thing I want to talk about before we jump into all the spreadsheets as well as Cakewalk's DPS Calculator is augments matter a lot and will determine whether a certain weapon is better for you or not. Another very important thing is if you're playing the Slayer class. If you're playing the Slayer class, the Verschmel weapon, even at Fixa Termina 5, isn't that great. So if you are playing a Slayer, wait till I talk about the Slayer, or you can just jump, there's like timestamps below, and then see which weapons I recommend afterwards, because the DPS calculator literally tells you which one is better. So if you are playing a Slayer, Verschmel weapon, even at Fixa Termina 5, not the best weapon. There are a lot more better options out there. However, as I said at the very beginning of the video, your augments matter a ton. For example, my augments are Gladiusol, High Ale Domina, Gigas Maste, Grand Dreadkeeper, Hal Finale, as well as an XD Def Parfait. Well, it just so happens that my floor potency is incredibly high because I have the Grand Dreadkeeper, I have the XD Parfait, and I have a lot of augments that boost my floor potency. If my floor potency is incredibly high, we're talking about like 70% or above, then it's simply better to use a Flugelguard weapon. However, if you have no floor potency and you just have pure potency, then the Verschmel with a Fixa Termina 5 might be better. But with that being said, let's jump into the spreadsheets. Alright, the very first thing I want to showcase over here is this is Cakewalk's DPS Calculator. There is a new version right now. This is version 3. So again, I will leave the link in the description below. Once you open it up, you want to go to File over here and then make a copy in order to change all the values. The very first thing I want you to do if you are following these steps and you're, doing all of the augments along with me, is you're going to scroll all the way to the right side. You're going to scroll down and you're going to disable this part. Also replace unit augments. You're going to disable this. You're going to disable all of these options right here. All right. Once that is done, then we're going to come back over here. First thing you're going to do is you're going to scroll down a little bit to the add-on skills and you're going to fill out your add-on skills. Add-on skills play a big part in how the DPS calculator works because there are a lot of moving parts in calculating your damage. So who knew NGS would be so complicated? So make sure that you actually fill out all of your main stats over here. So, for me, I've got everything at level 20 because I've been abusing the crap out of those Ed Master cubes. However, after that is done, the next thing you want to do is scroll down a little bit further, and right here under main class and subclass, you need to select your main class and your subclass. For example, I'm a Braver and I usually sub Waker against bosses. So as you can see, the stats look like this. However, watch, I'm going to change my main class to a Slayer, alright? So the moment I change my main class to a Slayer, look how different the charts look. Like freaking a lot of weapons are going to be better than the Verschmel with a Fixa Termina 5 the moment I change to a Slayer. The reason for this is because the Slayer has a lot of built-in crit rate. So that's why, the Verschmel weapon's not as good, since the potential of the Verschmel weapon is you get 100% crit rate, but you lose a little bit of damage. But with that being said, we're switching back to the Braver because we're going to be using my gear as an example over here. So as you can see over here, we're going to be using a Verschmel weapon with a Termina 5 with all of the augments that I currently have on my Flugelguard weapon. And it just so happens that the armor that I'm using is the Octo Armor Arga, and again, there's no Fixa, but I have the exact same augments in all of my gear. Now, because of all of my augments over here, you can see a lot of it actually gives me floor potency. High Ale Domina gives me 2%, Grand Dreadkeeper gives me 5%, XD Def Parfait gives me 3%, so I get a total of 10.31% per piece of gear, which just so results in my floor potency with the Flugelguard weapon being 74.04. And because my floor potency is so high, you can see that the Flugelguard weapon with no buffs is still better than the baseline of the Verschmel weapon with a Fixa Termina 5. Alright, so you can see right here, my Flugelguard weapon is still a 2% damage increase over the Verschmel weapon with a Fixa Termina 5. So this is what I mean by augments matter a ton, and also of course what piece of gear you're using. However, I know for a fact not everyone is going to be using the same augments as me. You know, my augments are relatively expensive and relatively endgame. Most people are probably just going to settle with the regular LC capsules and probably just put a stat 4 over here just to boost up their potency. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to go back to Cakewalk's DPS calculator, but we're going to plug in all of these LC capsules over here, and we're going to switch the Fixa Termina to level 2 just to compare with other weapons to begin with. And I'm also going to assume that you're probably going to be using the Ajax armors over here with the Fixa guard level 5, as well as the same augments over here. As for the 6th augment, I'm just going to assume all of you are just going to be plugging in a stat 4 because that is super accessible and everyone should have a ton of stat 4 capsules, so it's a very easy one to put in. So with that being said, we're going to have the Verschmail weapon over here. We're going to switch it back to Termina 2, and we are going to be changing all of these capsules into LC capsules. So a Gladiosol LC over here. Next up is the High El Domina LC. And then instead of Grand Dread Keeper, well, we don't have that. We actually have Mastery LC because that's what's on this piece of gear. We have Gigas Maste LC, we have Hal Finale LC, and then instead of an XD capsule, we're just gonna put Might 4 or whatever stat 4 that you have. So again, we're putting Might 4 because I am a Braver. However, let's say that you're playing a different class that uses technique, for example, like a Force or a Waker, then you definitely want to make sure that you change it from Might 4 to a Technique 4. So we're going to scroll down over here. We're going to be using the exact same augments on all of our gear over here. So we're just going to go like that, boom. And then instead of the Octo armor, we're actually going to be using the Ajax armor because that is the one that we get from the event shop. So Ajax armor. And our Fixa is going to be Fixa Guard 5. All right, boom. So we're going to copy this and we're going to paste it into all of the changes right here. And boom. So now when we scroll over to the right side a little bit, you can see baseline over here is our Verschmail weapon with a Fixa Termina 2. And you can see it's actually pulling ahead from a vanilla Flugelguard weapon. The reason for this is because we have very little floor potency. We only have 59.74% floor potency. And on top of having the low floor potency, another thing that's playing a big part over here is the weapon potential for the Verschmail weapon. The weapon potential for the Verschmail weapon is it gives you 100% crit rate, but at the cost of 14% potency. But the Flugelguard weapon potential is it gives you 37% potency, as well as all allies receive a support effect for 120 seconds after using a Photon Blast. These support effects stack. And that is why in the DPS calculator, you can see Flugelguard minus, Flugelguard plus, as well as Flugelguard plus times 3. And this is simply because of the number of support stacks that you get. So Flugelguard minus is no stacks. Flugelguard plus is 1 to 2 stacks, and Flugelguard plus 3 times is 3 stacks. The reason why the DPS goes up significantly on 3 stacks is because the third support effect when you have a third person that also has a Flugelguard that Photon Blast is it gives you additional crit rate, and that is why your DPS increases dramatically. Versus the regular one, if you just have 1 to 2 stacks, all you get is damage reduction, which doesn't do anything for DPS, and the second one is PP cost reduction, which is why, as you can see, you know, the damage increases very slightly at 0.35%, simply because it costs less photon power to cast photon arts, and thus you can pump out a little bit more damage as you can do more photon arts. So overall, you can see already that, hey, Verschmail weapon at Fixa Termina 2, this is the one that you just get straight out of the event shop, is already slightly better than the Flugelguard weapon if you are playing a Braver main class as well as a Waker subclass, and if you've maxed out all of your add-on skills. I'm actually going to disable all of our add-on skills, so we're just going to assume that everyone has 0 add-on skills over here. Again, we are Braver main class, Waker subclass. All right, we're going to scroll down again, and we're just going to move over so that you can see it more clearly. But as you can see over here, again, you know, Verschmail Termina 2 is our baseline, but the Flugelguard weapon actually pulls ahead. All right, so it does really matter on your add-on skills, your augments. There are a lot of moving parts over here, so it's highly recommended that you actually use this DPS calculator yourself, plug in your own specific scenario and your augments and whatever you have in order to get the most accurate results. However, just for my curiosity, let's bump the Verschmail Termina all the way to Termina level 5 over here and see what happens. So look, the moment we bump it up to Termina 5, so this is the baseline, right? If you are Braver main class as well as a Waker subclass, and you have all of your add-on skills at 20, you can see that the Verschmel Fixa Termina 5 is better than almost every weapon over here, okay? The only weapon it loses to is going to be a Flugelguard weapon with a Fixa Fatale 4 or higher. Everything else it beats out, which is actually pretty insane. However, again, super crazy disclaimer. This is assuming you are using all of the regular LC capsules that come from the event shop, you're using stat 4, and you're using the Ajax armor as well. The moment that we change our Ajax armors, the moment that we change all of our different augments, this is going to be totally different again, all right? So for example, let us just pretend we're playing a Slayer instead. So we're going to change this to a Slayer and we're going to change this to a Bouncer, for example, right? So we are actually going full boss mode. And now you can see, oh my goodness, it changes drastically. We didn't change any of our gear, right? You can see over here, Verschmel Termina 5, all of our LC capsules stat 4, and same over here. We're actually going to change our might 4, and we're going to change this to precision because, you know, obviously we are now playing a Slayer, so we do want precision and we don't want might anymore. All right, so we changed everything to precision, and we're going to slide over here. And you can see, even though we have a Verschmel Fixa Termina 5, there are so many other weapons that pull ahead. A Flugelguard weapon with no Fixa, a vanilla version, is still a 5.75% DPS increase over a Fixa Termina 5 Verschmel weapon, simply because the Slayer has so much crit already, so the Verschmel weapon potential doesn't provide as much value, alright? So if you are playing a Slayer, you can essentially use any melee weapon with a Fixa attack 1 or above, or just any other Fixa, and it's going to be a DPS increase. As you can see, literally with Fixa Blaster, Unwix, Wix, a Bandak, Termina, or Fatale, if you use any of them with a melee weapon, it is all a DPS increase, and it is better than your Verschmel weapon with a Fixa Termina 5. Again, I want to stress this is for Slayers and for Slayers only. And if we come down here, you know, you can use a Tisha weapon if you want, and of course you can use a Flugelguard weapon. However, do not use the seasonal weapon. The seasonal weapon is still worse than your Verschmel at Fixa Termina 5, okay? What is Emmy doing? So I hope by showing you guys how the DPS calculator works, you'll be able to plug in your own numbers, because everyone's gear is different. Not everyone's going to be using the same cookie cutter gear as myself. However, if you are using all of the gear from the event shop I just showed you already, if you're playing a Slayer, do not use the Verschmel weapon, okay? The Verschmel weapon, even at Fixa Termina 5, is not good for the Slayer if you are using all of the gear from the event shop. If you're using your own gear from different stuff, then it might be a different story. You need to plug in the numbers for yourself, okay? Because remember, add-on skills play a big part to your overall stats as well. Now, if you're like me and you have all of these endgame capsules and you have a ton of floor potency, we're talking about 70% or above, then it's not necessary to use the Verschmel weapon. You should just stick with your Flugelguard weapon, because the Flugelguard weapon is better. But if you are using all of the event shop stuff and then you have a Flugelguard weapon, then it's not going to be as good as a Verschmel Termina 5, simply because you're using all of the event shop augments, which aren't the most powerful one, and they don't give you a lot of floor potency, so there's going to be a lot of variance, and thus, you know, having 100% crit rate is going to pull ahead. Alright, so I know it's not the most definitive answer, and it's kind of wishy-washy depending on like what your gear is, but you know, I'm just trying to give you the most information I can so that you can make the best decision for yourself. Special thanks to all the members for supporting the channel. It really means a lot to me. Thank you again. But yeah, that's all I wanted to cover in today's video. Hopefully you guys found it helpful. If you did, I would appreciate a like and a subscribe, and I'll see you guys in tomorrow's video. Bye.